Hello everyone and welcome back to Destiny. Bungie just revealed their Rise of Iron expansion, slated to come out September 20th, and with that reveal came a pretty amazing trailer, which is jam-packed with really cool stuff. There's a lot of things you'll miss if you don't pay close attention, so let's take a much closer look at this trailer. If you haven't had a chance to watch the trailer yet, I highly recommend watching it first. I'll leave the link in the description.
We thought we were indestructible. The Lords of Iron.
This is the first place I wanted to pause at on Lord Saladin. This is the first time we're seeing him without the helmet, and it makes a lot of sense since he's going to be a much more important role in this expansion. As we'll see a little bit later in the trailer, there are some other characters that look like they might be quest givers, but I wouldn't be surprised if he is one of the primary quest givers in this expansion. And as the camera pans up, we get a pretty good look at the broken section of the wall. And it also looks like it's been about a day or so since this wall breach actually happened, since there's no fire or smoke in the shot. It looks like maybe Lord Saladin heard something happen to the wall and is investigating. And here we have the first good look at the new enemy faction, the Fallen Splicers. These are the new mutated Fallen that actually span across the different Fallen houses on Earth. And you can bet just like with the Taken, they're going to have their own new sets of abilities. Here we have one of the Dreg Splicers stepping into frame. It's nothing significant, but it does a really good job at showing how exactly they've been augmented by Siva's technology. Here is the next place I wanted to stop at. Here it still looks like the Dreg Splicers, as evident with the signature red mohawk that the Dregs have. Now this does look like an in-game shot, so I'm not really sure exactly what's going on here. It's possible that this enemy type will remain dormant until we maybe get too close or make some noise. Either way, they kinda remind me of the sleeping grunts from Halo, so that's pretty cool to see. Now here is a really interesting shot, for a few reasons. One, it features a very long bridge without any enemies, and two, the Guardian trekking across this bridge is by himself. So I would say that immediately rules out a raid or strike. So my only other thought for this is that it's in fact a story mission. It's very likely that this is the final story mission, as I'm willing to bet that this here in this shot is Siva. And the Guardian pictured is maybe making its final descent down to Siva's chambers to put it out for good. And here's another shot of that Guardian walking down the bridge, and it reminds me of a certain other final boss fight from the Taken King, where you slowly make your way down to the final boss chamber. And here is our first look at the new Iron Banner Warlock helmet. Now here is what looks like the inside of that chamber, and it's still hard to tell exactly what's going on here. It doesn't look like there's much space for a boss fight here, but I'm willing to bet that this object in front of us right here is Siva, but maybe there's a twist. At this point, anything is possible. And I also wanted to stop here simply because it's interesting that this follows the previous shot. So maybe it's a little bit later in that level. Now of course, this kind of architecture we've seen before in Rasputin's bunker, so it's possible that Siva is some sort of rogue warmind. I believe that this is maybe a weapon that the Iron Lords were originally going to use to their advantage against the darkness, and then maybe it just became too powerful and too dark and evil and they were unable to contain it. Then as we know, the other Iron Lords sacrificed their lives in order to actually contain it forever. And then there's Lord Saladin, who has remained behind in case the darkness ever gets out. Now here's a really interesting structure, as it seems to resemble a gigantic servitor. If you look a little bit closer at towards the bottom and some of the debris on the left hand side, it actually looks like this is a gigantic ship that has maybe crashed into this area. This might in fact be what made the hole in the wall in the first place. Either way, this looks very similar to where you fight Sepix in the Devil's Lair strike. Now we know that we're getting some updated strikes in this expansion, and with the whole setting being on Earth, there's a very good chance that the Devil's Lair strike is coming back. And if it is, it's possible that this is the Siva version of that strike. And then we have this character, which looks like it might be one of the main bosses in the game. Either way, I think this is the final boss chamber for one of the strikes, whether or not it's the reimagined Devil's Lair or a brand new strike altogether. Either way, it looks like it should be a pretty interesting fight. And then we have this animation. It's hard to tell exactly what's going on here, so I'm going to go ahead and slow it down quite a bit for us. Now I think that this is the death animation for the splicers. It kind of reminds me of Final Fantasy VII's death animations. But he's either being killed or he's being sucked up into that giant servitor. And now we're back to the cinematic where the Dreg splicers are closing in on Saladin. It looks like this version of the Dreg is going to be a lot more aggressive and less cowardly, maybe behaving a lot more like the Thrall.
It is time to avenge my brothers and sisters.
I left the audio in that previous clip simply because I think it points out a very important detail in the story. During the reveal stream, we also learned that Yoldir is a girl. And online I've seen a lot of people theorize about the lady that we see a little bit later in the social space, and that in fact she might be Yoldir. But it's important to remember that all of the Iron Lords have fallen, and Saladin is the last remaining Iron Lord. Now of course it could be amazing to have one of the twists in this story be that one of the previous Iron Lords are in fact still alive, but I don't think the lady we see in Felwinter Peak is that person. And here we get a really good look at Saladin creating that axe. The creative director for Rise of Iron, Chris Barrett, who was part of the reveal stream, did let us know that this is in fact an in-game relic. So you can expect it to behave like the Scorch Cannon. It'll appear during certain missions or strikes, and it'll probably run out of juice after a certain amount of time.
Stand with me, Guardian. Prove yourself worthy, and the Iron Lords will rise again.
So with this previous line and some of the marketing that we've seen online, it looks like we're on our path to become an Iron Lord ourselves. Now with my Titan's current Iron Banner armor set, I already feel like a badass Iron Lord, but it'll be really interesting to see exactly what it means when they refer to us becoming Iron Lords. If in fact it means anything at all. Now here we have a really interesting shot. There's a few things to break down here. First, we see some gondolas in the background. I don't think we're going to be interacting with them at all, and I think they're just there as part of the skybox. And the next thing took me a really long time to actually realize, but then kind of blew my mind when I saw it, and that is what appears to be a transmat zone in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. Transmat zones are in every destination of Destiny, and it's where you zone into when you go on patrol. Now they talked about this during the Bungie livestream, but it was a little hard to wrap your head around because of the wording that they were using. From what he said, I'm gathering that there's going to be a new place to spawn in on for patrol. Now as the Plaguelands are described to be inside the Cosmodrome, I don't think it's going to be a completely separate destination. Think of the Plaguelands as an extension to the current Cosmodrome, which means that you should be able to walk from here to the current zones like the Divide and the Blast by foot if you wanted to. And this transmat zone just simply serves as a shortcut to get to the new content. So this looks like the starting bubble of that new destination. There will probably be 5 or 6 major areas, and I think one of them includes the wall. Now of course when looking at this reverse shot, things look a little different. And if we look off in the distance, it's a little hard to see, but it looks like that might be the new social space. Now we've been told that we have to reclaim this new social space called Felwinter Peak from the enemy. So it's very possible that this is that first mission to unlock the space. Now I would love for Felwinter Peak to be part of the patrol destination as sort of a safe area. And it would be awesome if we had to hike the mountain every time we wanted to visit it. That would not only make you earn your visit to Felwinter Peak, but it would make it feel like a true open world. Now here's another interesting shot. It shows the Guardians going into a missile silo. Now in this shot we see 3 Guardians approaching the hangar door, and it doesn't seem to be anywhere near the wall as there's not as much snow as there are in the other areas. My guess is that this is the beginning of the new strike. Either way, I really hope there's a dead ghost at the very top of that rocket. I'm going to be checking that day 1. And here we have the main temple in the Felwinter Peak social space. Here we see a new character which we do not know the name of yet, possibly a new quest giver. And behind her we see the statues of the fallen Iron Lords. In fact, one of them is a female and could be Yoldir's statue. Here is a reverse shot of the temple where we can get a better sense of the space. We see some more statues, a couple of wolf statues in the middle there, a fire pit, and what looks to be the original tree that the Iron Banner symbol is based off of. Another interesting note is that the statue figures on the other side of this room were holding axes, while the statues on this side of the room are holding broadswords. So while we might not be getting an axe, it is possible that we're going to be getting a new sword, possibly this Iron Banner broadsword. That might be the last piece into making us feel like a true Iron Lord. Here we have another shot at the Warlock in the new Iron Banner gear. I really like the new design for this gear. It's approaching sort of a Viking type aesthetic. Now in this shot he's holding a scout rifle, and based on the colors it looks like it's going to be the new future War Cult scout rifle. And if it is, it confirms that we're getting brand new faction weapons, which is always a nice thing to have. Now it's very evident that we're in the Cosmodrome in this shot, but you can see behind him there's a river of lava. And I believe this to be an area where there's some sort of splicer smelting operation going on. Either way, it's nice to see the environment changed up in this way. Now here it seems like the Titan is wearing the brand new raid set gear. Now this hasn't been confirmed by Bungie, but it's a safe assumption based on how unique this armor looks. And finally we have a hunter brandishing what seems to be the new Trials of Osiris gear. The cool thing about this is that it's a brand new armor model, not just a reskin. And here is the first glimpse into the raid. Chris Barrett did mention that we would be running on top of the wall, so this seems to fulfill that promise. My guess is you either have to ascend to this point, or you simply spawn on top. And here we have a reverse shot of what seems to be the Guardians leaping down into the beginning of the raid, and it's interesting that in the background you can see the smelting operation that I was referring to a little bit earlier. So this definitely seems to be taking place in the Plaguelands. And here we have a low angle shot of that same situation. It appears the section onto the left there is where the Guardians leapt off of, and now they're making their way across the bridge. Now here's the first shot of what appears to be your first challenge in the raid. I would compare this to, say, defending the sink plates in the Vault of Glass. And here we have a really interesting reverse shot where it looks like the Zamboni is actually on the top of the wall. So it's possible that we're getting the shots in this trailer in a different order, and in fact you take on that Death Zamboni before dropping down into the rest of the raid. Here we have an interesting environment which seems to be one of the main new parts of the Plaguelands. It's hard to say what's going on, but it looks like there's something going on with that environment. It almost looks like someone took a lightsaber to a lot of those walls. The shot also features the Warlock with what looks to be the brand new Vanguard fusion rifle. And here we have another look at that river of lava flowing through this section of the Plaguelands. I think this section actually might be an enemy stronghold. But either way, again, we're seeing 3 Guardians, implying that it might be a part of the new strike. And then we have what looks to be another death animation. It's hard to say exactly, so let's take a closer look. So in this we see a few things. First we see the enemy taken down by what looks like to be flames. We also see what seems to be the new Siva death animation. And then we see our Guardian wrapped in what seems to be a cloud of lightning. But more interestingly, we see our Guardian holding a new kind of weapon which seems to be influenced by Siva. Now I don't think that this is a raid weapon, as it seems to be simply an augmented Omelan scout rifle. But my bet is that it's a strike exclusive for whatever the new strike ends up being. And here we have another look at the Iron Yellowhorn. This will operate the exact same way as the normal Yellowhorn, it's just a cosmetic bonus for those who pre-order. And it looks like either way we're going to be getting our hands on it by completing an in-game quest line. And I'm a huge fan of that, as I think the exotic quest lines are some of the most satisfying in the game. And here we see a Warlock wielding that flaming axe and what appears to be Skywatch. I really hope this means that that axe will spawn in some sort of new public event. He also seems to be slamming down with the axe, similar to a Fist of Havoc type attack. If that's the case, it might just turn out to be a pretty formidable weapon. And that brings us to the end of the trailer. I'm definitely excited for what I see, and I can't wait to jump into the game. My only concern is that it doesn't seem to be enough content to justify the entirety of Year 3. So this could mean that we're going to get more expansions regularly in year 3, or that Destiny 2 is a lot closer to release than we might realize. The rumor of a spring release is looking more and more likely. But anyways, let me know if I missed any details in the trailer in the comments below. Drop a like if you can, and subscribe for more Destiny content, and I will see you all next time. Rise of Iron has officially been revealed, and all I want to say is, Gjallarhorn is back in black, and hell yes.